Chapter 1777 Technology that has advanced civilization by hundreds of years. That energy source was only about 1 meter in diameter, and it even looked a bit petite compared to the massive size of the super-large mechanical life forms. Zhang Yi didn't see a single thing about it. It was all in one piece, and there was not even a trace of machinery to be seen. Even when viewed with intelligent equipment that zoomed in, there was no sign of polishing, as if it was born purely naturally. Source use of materials, but do not know what, just that kind of material, the degree of toughness but beyond E-metal. Zhang Yi looked at it for half a day and said, "Study this thing properly." Lu Karen jumped out from amongst the mechs and stared at the source with burning eyes. "Let me do it, brother." Her hands were placed on top of the energy source, and the divine machinist manipulation ability began to activate. This ability allowed her to understand the construction of all matter, analyze it, and even change its properties. As long as something was touched by her, theoretically, she was able to copy and carve it. Lu Karen's body lit up with a supernatural glow, and shortly after, she opened her eyes and looked at the energy source with increasing excitement. The energy contained within this is too rich. Brother, if we are able to decipher this technology, our industrial technology will develop tremendously. She pointed at the energy source and said to Zhang Yi, "Especially this red energy body, it's an even more advanced energy than Yuan. With the same unit, the energy released is more than 1,000 times that of Yuan stone." Zhang Yi thought about it and realized the crux of the matter. That is to say, we can reduce the size of the energy supply device. Or even make a car have the power of a rocket. Lu Karen nodded. This is just one of its benefits. In fact, as long as we can completely master its technology, our rewards will be unimaginable. She looked at the huge source of energy like it was a treasure. Its value is even more enormous than a single copy of Spirit of Sacrifice. Zhang Yi glanced at the people around him. Deng Shentong's Heavenly God Squad and Ling were not his people. However, very quickly, Zhang Yi dispelled his intention to keep them a secret. This was because the invasion of the mechanical civilization had already been in full swing on the land of Fremons. Everyone knew that these mechanical life forms were made by a higher-level civilization and contained advanced science and technology. He couldn't hide it even if he wanted to. This is one of the great benefits that come from making contact with underground civilizations. No wonder so many kingdoms and powerful forces all over the world would rather risk losing their troops than engage in underground exploration. Zhang Yi said with emotion. "Well then, I'll leave this matter to you." Lu Karen scratched her head and said, "It involves a lot of calculations, so it might be hard for me to handle it alone." She said and looked at Yang Xinxin next to her and said with a smile, "Let Xinxin come over and help me." Yang Xinxin nodded as she whispered to Zhang Yi, "The core of a mechanical life form lies in 3 sources. The first is the energy supply, the second is the operating system, and the third is the materials. We have to figure out their operating principles so that we cannot lose out when we face them again next. Brother, put this big guy into Muyan's shadow space. Also give me another undamaged mass-produced machine, I'll study it." Zhang Yi nodded. "All right then, I'll leave this matter to you guys." And Zhang Yi himself was not idle. Since he had found a large amount of mineral deposits in this area, it was natural to collect them all. Wherever he passed by, it was like locusts passing through, all the good things were going to be included in his dimensional space. Hey, there is no way, other mutants are backed by big powers, but Zhang Yi has to rely on himself, so he has to be frugal in his life. Lu Qian and Yang Xinxin, on the other hand, took the captured mechs and entered Muyan's shadow space to study them. While still cleaning up the battlefield, Zhang Yi's communication device suddenly received a communication request. It was a member of the Pantheon that he had met before, god of fishing and hunting, Pradaja. Zhang Yi smiled faintly. "I can't believe they found out so quickly." After all, it was in Fremon's territory, and with such a large-scale war taking place, it was impossible to escape their eyes. After all, the satellite system above the vault of heaven was not a vegetarian. Zhang Yi still connected the communication. After all, it was in someone else's territory, the rules that should be followed should still be followed. As soon as the video was connected, Prabhaj's smiling face appeared. Mr. Chaos, we have sensed a strong battle fluctuation in the Far East region. And the only ones in the Far East region today are your team. May I ask, is it something that has happened there in your area? Zhang Yi did not hide it. After all, he could not hide it. Not long after we arrived in the Far East region, we headed to the middle of a city ruin to investigate the movements of the mechanical civilization. As a result, we were attacked by a mechanical army. But it's already fine, we've already taken care of them. Zhang Yi's tone was cloudy and light, as if he had just had an afternoon tea. The shock on Prabhaj's face did not escape Zhang Yi's eyes. Are you saying that you guys have already taken care of that mechanical army? Zhang Yi did not know where Prabhaj's consternation came from. It was because to him, the battle was a bit sudden, but there was no difficulty whatsoever. The mutants under his command only had a few minor injuries, and none of them even died in battle. But how could he know how shocked Prabhaja was inside at this moment? After Fremons appeared to have a strange movement, they had also repeatedly sent out strong men from the Pantheon to lead teams to deal with the problem. But after losing 2 of the Pantheon's level mutants and hundreds of thousands of elite soldiers, they were still losing on the battlefield. Now, their capital, Kirin, had fallen, and the entire Far East region had been helplessly abandoned by them. But this troop that had come from Huashu Kingdom had completely annihilated a mechanical legion in just less than 20 minutes of time. Prabhaja didn't believe his ears. As a senior general of Fremons, he was well aware of the terrifying nature of those mechanical life forms. Moreover, amongst every mechanical legion, there was bound to be one of those mega-mechanical life forms for the simple reason that without such mega-machines, it would be impossible to complete excavation operations quickly. In a certain way, these mechanical life forms were all work-in-combat integrated machines. He still remembered that when Kirin City was attacked, there were 5 of these oversized mechanical life forms that emerged from the ground, beating the mutants of the Pantheon and making it difficult for them to deal with them for a time. Especially that kind of defensive force field made several Black Chariot-level mutants helpless. Somewhat undeterred, he asked, "May I ask Mr. Chaos, how large is the size of the mechanical army on your side?" Zhang Yi thought for a moment and said, "About 40,000 to 50,000 units." Prabhaja swallowed a mouthful of saliva. 40,000 to 50,000 units, completely the size of a large mechanical legion. Then, have you ever encountered that kind of, exceptionally large, tall building-like mechanical life forms? Zhang Yi nodded. I encountered one. But it has already been finished off by me. Prabhaja's eyes quickly flashed with an abnormal luster when he heard this. His throat quirked and the expression on his face became fawning. When Zhang Yi saw this expression on his face, he had an uncomfortable feeling inside. As expected, Prabhaja smiled when he opened his mouth and said, "Mr. Chaos, thank you very much for your assistance to Fremons as friends. You have done a very good job, and I would like to express my sincerest gratitude to you on behalf of the entire Fremons up and down. You and your team must be very tired after the great battle. Please find a place to rest as soon as possible. As for that battlefield, I will send people over to clean it as soon as possible. How can I trouble you with such trivial matters?" The first time Zhang Yi met Prabhaja, he didn't like this guy very much. It was because the man's face was not pleasing to the eye, and he always gave off a feeling of shrewdness in his speech and actions. This was not a compliment, but rather sarcasm. A truly smart person doesn't let people know you're smart at first glance. People who like to write smart on their faces are people who love to be calculating and can't take a little loss. And this kind of person, no one likes to get along with him. Zhang Yi sneered in his heart, and the corner of his mouth had slowly hooked up. Prabhaja meant to take all the loot? The feeling was that they had come over to work for nothing. No need, we can still do a small thing like clearing the battlefield ourselves. Moreover, these mechanical life forms seem to be very interesting, so we'll have to study them ourselves. Zhang Yi deliberately said so as he wanted to see what kind of attitude Prodaja had. A smile still piled up on Prodaja's face. You have traveled a long way, and it's not very convenient to do this kind of thing when it's freezing cold in Fremons. We have specialized engineering units in Fremons that do just this sort of thing. It's better to let us do it. Saying this, he suddenly tapped his head as if he thought of something. Oh, please don't worry. If you are worried about the distribution of the loot, please believe a sincere Fremons man who would never let his friends suffer even the slightest loss. We will organize the valuable materials and then save them for you according to their corresponding value until it is the right time for you to pick them up. Or we'll send them back to Huashu Kingdom for you. Prodaja was filled with a sincere smile, while Zhang Yi just slightly narrowed his narrow eyes. Oh, my dear Devaris. I very much believe in your sincerity. It's just that. Zhang Yi showed the camera towards the surroundings, and then Prodaja saw the ruins of the entire city, not a single mechanical life form in sight, not even a fragment left behind. Maybe you don't know that I am a space ability mutant. It's true that we don't have a lot of manpower, and it's troublesome to clean up a little bit, so I've put away all the loot. Prodaja did not know Zhang Yi's ability. However, when he saw the empty battlefield, he could not tell how hard it was inside. Fremons was not a wealthy nation. In the midst of the war with the mechanical civilization, they had also endured considerable losses. If they could collect the supplies of an entire mechanical army for their own use, it would allow them to get a large mouthful of blood back. However, to go and fight with a neighboring country that had come to their aid for the spoils of war, this kind of behavior was really underhanded. Prodaja said nice things, first help them to collect, later leave and then send you back to the country. But when it really came to their hands, the most valuable part was definitely going to be left behind by them. Prodaja's smile froze on his face. Only after a long time did he say with a leathery expression, worthy of His Excellency Chaos. However, as a general of Fremons, I have an unfavorable request. Zhang Yi was already a bit annoyed with him, but on one hand, he had gained quite a lot this time, and on the other hand, on account of the Pantheon's previous assistance to them, he still patiently asked, Oh? What is it? Prodaja said, that super-large mechanical life form. We hope that Your Excellency can give it to us. We need to study it as a way to get the means to deal with them. On the current battlefield, they are causing us great trouble. In order for the human civilization to be able to win this war against the mechanical civilization, I'm sure you're willing to do us this favor, right? After Prodaja finished speaking, he stared straight at Zhang Yi, unable to tell whether it was a plea or coercion in his eyes. The smile on Zhang Yi's face intensified. Okay. Before Prodaja's face could reveal a smile, he heard Zhang Yi's next words. I have the world's best team by my side, and they are stepping up their efforts to crack it, so I will share the information with you when the time comes. Prodaja was anxious. He was very clear about how important something was inside that kind of super-large mechanical life form. Even they, Fremons, had only managed to capture one after researching it for a long time and having their number one powerhouse make a move. That particular energy body, once it could be deciphered, was enough to advance the science and technology of the entire Fremons for hundreds of years. Mr. Chaos, our Fremons has the most professional team. Zhang Yi reached out and interrupted, Mr. Prodaja, are you serious? Zhang Yi stared at Prodaja's face with a smirking expression. On the level of technology, you Fremons are talking to me? Prodaja opened his mouth, but he was still unwilling to give up just like that. This matter is settled, we will take care of it ourselves. Zhang Yi said coldly, see you later. After saying that, Zhang Yi directly ended the call. If he didn't see that there were benefits to be gained here, according to Zhang Yi's temperament, he would have long ago led people away. Dude came here to help, and you have this attitude? But now, even if Fremon's people begged him to go back, he wouldn't leave. Mechanical civilization, this is a huge treasure. Zhang-Yi smiled as he was going to collect more such mechanical lifeforms next. Samran City. After Prodaja was hung up on the communication video by Zhang-Yi, he cursed angrily in anger for several times. He pondered for a long while and went to find good old Alexei first. Purin, the person you called is just too rude. It's clear that they've arrived in our Frumon's territory and should do as we tell them to do. How can you act at will? Moreover, he defeated a mechanical army and even collected all the benefits himself. Those are all resources that belong to our Frumons. Prodaja spat madly in Alexei's face.